Welcome to Gamers Uplink Live for November 24th, 2018. Joining me this week is our co-founder of Gamers Uplink, George. How you doing today, George?
I'm doing pretty good. It's a cold evening in the Northeast. I tell you, man. I think Old Man Winter has come a little early this year, and I'm freezing. You know, doing all the having all the bills with the oil heat and everything like that here in the Northeast. It's going to be, if this is a preview of what's to come, I tell you, I might move down to Florida with you.
I got the room.
Yep.
This is our first live stream we've had in a while. We've been kind of dark due to technical issues, but I promise in the coming year, we're going to be back in full force. Of course, in January, we have our annual CES show that we always do. We missed out on E3 this year. Yes, I am way disappointed in that, but real life and technical issues unfortunately prevented us from doing that. But we will be here for CES, and we promise that. So look forward to that. So let's go ahead and get the show off. George, you got some news stories for us, don't you?
Yes, let's get started right now. Let's with our stories for the week. All right, you ready?
One moment. All right, let's get this going.
All right. Number one, Fallout 76 reviews. Getting quite a bit of attention for a lot of negatives. There's a 50 on Metacritic. There's a bunch of single-player issues happening, and a lot of ranting and raving on the internet. Plus, they're trying to get rid of single players. Let's figure out what's going on with that. I don't know. Number two, PlayStation Classic titles announced, and pre-orders dropped. Are we looking at a failure for the Sony PlayStation Classic? We're going to discuss it. Number three, C64 Mini. Is this going to be the relaunch of a new era in retro gaming PCs? We're going to discuss it and find out. Number four, arcade one-up cabinets. This is an interesting one here. There's a lot of hype around it. It's being sold at a number of stores. Is this really truly going to be the consumerization? Is it a novelty, or is it going to be going away like everything else? Number five, a favorite game of mine, the Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time, has turned 20. I tell you, I've spent many hours, playing this game and doing all that stuff, and we're going to go back and just talk about it as the whole thing. Number six, the end of Steam, as if you haven't seen that coming.
Well, the Steam Link, rather.
Yeah, Steam Link, of course. Thank you. As if you haven't seen that coming, the end of Steam Link. We're going to digest into that. It was a solution that allowed you to play games for your PC and your TV via a network. There's a lot of different things there. And number seven, last and foremost, rumors around the PlayStation 4. What is going to be the successor? Is it going to lead to an end of physical media? We're going to find out. All right. Matt, back to you.
Thanks, George. All right, so let's go ahead and get started with the obvious things first and foremost. Fallout 76. Once again, a company has decided to take a single-player property that's very well loved. Fallout is universally acclaimed as being one of the best gaming franchises out there. I can't think of many that have as much universal acclaim as Fallout, and is one of the crown jewels in Bethesda's hat, or in Bethesda's crown, kind of like Zelda and Mario is to Nintendo. And Halo is the Microsoft. They decided to go the multiplayer route with this one, and people don't seem to be getting fully on board with that. Are you really surprised by this? What do you guys think? I'm not sure. I mean, we've seen them do this before with other things. Resident Evil is a recent example with Operation Raccoon City. Wasn't very well liked as it was a squad-based game. It always seems like they're trying to make multiplayer out of the single player because they ran out of single player ideas. What do you think, George?
I think it's the beginning of the end for some multiplayer games here. I've not played Fallout 76, but I've heard of the rants and raves out there. There's a lot of consternation. People like to play single player games. I, for one, love to play single player games.
One, am also missing local player co-op. I mean, how many games don't even have that anymore?
Well, we're really
just single player.
Yeah, we're really dating ourselves with that one, Matt. I tell you, at the end of the day, I don't want to be, I don't want to have to play with other people if I don't have to, right? I mean, it's like it's similar to what they did with SimCity 4, right? They forced you into this whole cooperative of players. You had to be online to play, and you had to trade with real players. A lot of people hated it. A lot of people complained about it, and we're seeing a similar thing happen here. The cooperative, maybe it makes sense to go back to the cooperative, really hyper local model. But to get rid of single player, I mean, that's just it's just a very poor decision on the part of the developers.
I have to agree. I mean, we're seeing from the reviews have been pretty much that good ideas, poor execution. It's kind of like they decided they kind of want to go full or go multiplayer, but it very much feels kind of like a weird, they abandoned the idea halfway through and kind of went back to what they knew best. And it doesn't quite work with what they're doing.
Yeah.
You got this guy here, he wasn't none too happy, as you can see with his purchase of Fallout 76. This has been making rounds of this guy at GameStop who got a little angry, as you can see, at the GameStop wouldn't take the game back. This guy, a little extreme.
Just a tad.
It's just a tad. Oh, there you go. Hulk smash. I mean, I've been to GameStop sometimes. It felt like doing this whenever they offer me whatever they offer me for trading sometimes. Kudos to that GameStop employee too. That's not an easy job.
No, it's not. It's not. And I hear that the GameStop employees, they get questionable treatment to begin with. So to deal with something like this, it's definitely a challenge there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, PlayStation Classic is coming out. We've known this. It comes out, I think, in a couple of weeks, actually. Mm-hmm. And we got a list of full games here. Let me go through the list real quick. Battle Arena Toshinden, Cool Borders 2, Destruction Derby, Final Fantasy VII, Grand Theft Auto, Intelligent Cube, Jumping Flash, Metal Gear Solid, Mr. Driller, Oddworld, Abe's Odyssey, Rayman, Resident Evil Director's Cut, Revelations, Persona, Ridge Racer Type 4, Super Puzzle Fighter 2 Turbo, Tekken 3, Rainbow Six, Twist of Metal, and Wild Arms. What games do you notice are missing from this list?
Quite a number. The Crash series is missing. There's a lot of the Soul Calibur series is missing. There are quite a number of games that I'm
Chrono
just
Cross, most RPGs aren't
yeah.
there. No, no. What? Wait a minute. No Castlevania Symphony of the Night?
None.
Nintendo had Castlevania on both of theirs.
Yep. I'm gonna call this one. I think Sony is gonna epically fail on this.
Oh yeah.
And all over. Recently there's been a lot of commentary. Metal Jesus Rocks, one key example. He went out and he flat out canceled his pre-order once he saw the list, because he said it like everybody else. There's only a few good games on this system that are worth playing. Like, okay, I'll get away with, say, Final Fantasy VII, some Grand Theft Auto, Metal Gear Solid, and maybe Tekken 3, because I played those in the arcades, and as well as played them on the PlayStation 1. Yeah, but to me this was a very epic miss on the account of Sony.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I mean, really, 7 of these titles I consider to be genre defining or defining of the console. Battle Arena Toshinden, Final Fantasy VII, GTA, Metal Gear Solid, Resident Evil, Ridge Racer Type 4, which the Ridge Racer series in general is kind of on there, but also no Gran Turismo?
I was surprised at that myself.
Sony's internal brand, and Tekken 3, which that's Namco, and Twist of Metal. But Crash was the face of the PlayStation. I know Crash has a unique situation that we just had a remaster release a few months ago, and it's still out there, which could have been part of the problem. Sony doesn't own that. Vivendi and Universal owned it. Now Activision owns it. So maybe I have a feeling that a lot of these problems were licensing, and that's probably the biggest thing was they couldn't license certain titles or get licensing for it for this console, or they weren't willing to shill out for that fee, which I could see that being a possibility. Nintendo didn't have any problems.
Yeah, but
a lot of theirs were, but again, also Sony doesn't have really a lot of good first party titles, where Nintendo had a solid first party selection on their systems. Same with Sega. Also, they had a solid first party selection. Sony, not so much. Most people don't remember a lot of the things on Sony on the PlayStation that people remember were third party. They were not first party games.
So here's a challenge. You see, with Nintendo, they at least went through and got the good classic games that we all loved and enjoyed. I'll be honest though, with the Nintendo, I'm not much of a fan because there's a lot of latency issues between when I plugged it in and when it hits it. But
I admit that.
I think that was one of my major complaints. But otherwise, it was a solid retro system. All the retro systems that I've seen come out. From the Intellivision and ColecoVision, mini consoles, to the NES and the Atari, and even the AtGames Sega Genesis, they all had a good degree of some classic games that we all enjoyed and loved. Here, I mean, I'm not gonna play Cool Borders 2. I'm not gonna play Rayman. Mr. Driller, I've never heard
Rayman.
of. But you like Rayman? Rayman never appealed to me.
Yeah, it's a good Mario alternative.
I mean, I'd like to hear what the people in the comments think, because at the end of the day, I was not really much of a fan of Rayman. I didn't play it as much as say the Mario series or anything like that.
Yeah.
So maybe there's somebody in the comment section that can
Oddworld's actually a good game, but it came out towards I remember the end of the PlayStation's life cycle. Oddworld's a good game. Not a lot of people like it, or it's not well known. It's kind of a hidden gem.
Yeah,
it's kind of the only real hidden gem on this whole list, which is kind of a weird game to throw in there, in my opinion. Especially since it's not exactly a big title. Popular among retro gamers, yeah, but not like the casual gamer. And that's the thing with these consoles; they target the casual gaming audience. I know a lot of people would say, "Oh, I can build a RetroPie or something to do that." That's not what this isn't targeted. That isn't targeted for you and me. Well, targeted for me because I collect these things. But I mean, the casual market who wants to play these games and relive their childhood, this is the only way they can do it, because they're not going to buy RetroPies.
Well, unless if you're smart enough to build a RetroPie like us. I mean, I have my RetroPie and I love it. But the thing is you're right. This is targeted at a consumer market that does want to play and relive their childhood. Nintendo did it right. They got the right games. They got the right configuration.
And Sony is following their footsteps.
They are.
They've always been an us two company. They've made a lot of money doing that. And that's exactly what they're doing. We can do it too.
It's funny. I actually that was the exact first thought that came to my mind once they announced this, is that, oh, we saw the success of the NES and the SNES classics and the Atari Flashback and the Sega Genesis Flashback.
And despite what we say about the games consoles, they are relatively popular in the casual market.
They are. But Sony is coming out and saying, "Oh wait, me too." And next thing you know, they come out with this craptastic. I'm very disappointed at Sony.
I am.
They royally messed this up. And at the end of the day, they're going to lose a lot of trust. They have their new console coming out, right? And so they need to stay relevant in this market.
Right.
And from that perspective, with the amount of people that are getting disappointed, people like Metal Jesus I mentioned who literally outright canceled.
John, the immortal John Hancock, he's also not a fan of it. A lot of people a lot of YouTubers cancel their pre-orders.
Yeah, I know, and that's a problem. Sony's going to have a big PR issue on their hands if they can't fix it. Now, here's the catch point. All right, maybe, just maybe, they're holding a few cards to their chest, right? And maybe there'll be a couple of surprise games that come out.
No, I don't think so.
I mean, it's one can hope, right? I mean, hope is what makes the world go round, right? And so I would assume that if the PlayStation marketeers or the PlayStation PR people actually decide that actually go on Metal Jesus Rocks and the Emerald Hancock and all the others and see that, hey, this is not good for our marketing efforts, and this is not good for our business. Maybe they'll go ahead and actually add a few games.
Well, the problem is a lot of these games are already available in the PlayStation Store and the PS1 Classics. You can still use the discs in your PlayStation 2 and 3. There are other ways to play a lot of these games.
That's true.
When you didn't, the NES Classic, as good as it is, you have to use the Virtual Console. And not all those games are on Virtual Console, if I remember right. There's some that aren't.
That's true.
But at the same time, there are other means. But you want to look at something like the C64 Classic. Yep. They're kind of doing it right. Well, yeah, they also suffer from the same problem that Sony has.
Mm-hmm.
You know what? You can sideload, officially, mind you, this is the only retro console I know of, outside of the At Games console, which can play Genesis games, that you can sideload other games into the system via firmware. You can upgrade this. You can put new games on this. This is an actual C64 emulator in a box. And I think they did it right. There's 64 games in this thing. Maybe a handful people will play, California games. You got Jumpman. There's a few other games that are very common on the C64, but a lot of these are games that aren't that popular. But that doesn't mean that's what you're limited to.
Yeah, and I think you're right. You and I both know the Ape guy. He did an extensive review on the C64 Mini, and what he he had both a negative and a positive viewpoint on it. For one, it was the negative side was that out of the games, and it's similar to how it's working with the PlayStation Classic, right? Out of all the games, there may be 5 or 10 games, or maybe even less, I don't remember, that he actually would have physically played. For me, actually, it would have been less. It would have been 2 or 3. But still, you're absolutely right. What I love about it is the fact that you can load, sideload those games in and play that. And in fact, I still have my copy of Planet X2 that I want to load into this C64 Mini once I get it to try it out, because my Commodore 64 has seen better days. So it's
and this one's $90 or 80 or 90, I think. It's $80. You can upgrade it, where Sony's is selling for what, 100, and you still are limited to a handful of games. Nintendo's, the SNES Classic, I think, is 70. The NES is 60. And it has mostly games people want to play. The At Games consoles can vary in price because you can find them pretty cheap if you know where to look. And they have games that are all the Sonic games, Phantasy Stars, a lot of the top tier Sega games are on there. I just think Sony really dropped the ball. I wrote an article on it when they first announced it, but this is Sony once again saying we're gonna go half in and try and take a piece of this market, but not really put our effort into it. And it's sad.
Yeah, and what's interesting about this is that you look at what the word is that they're actually planning a full-size Commodore 64 with a working keyboard and some other cool things. And it's nice because it's going to reintroduce it's going to properly, I should say, reintroduce a computer system that everybody grew up with. And I grew up with it. In fact, the Commodore 64 was my first computer.
For a lot of us in the 80s, that was computers. Is that and the Atari ST, or that was about it, at least in the North American market. I mean, you had other options in Europe. But for us, the C64 and Atari computers were pretty much it for a long time, for 8-bit computers.
Yeah, definitely. One of these days I'm looking to expand my collection on that. What's interesting is that the C64 has a very unique following. I mean, I talked about the 8-bit guy, but there was we're going to eventually hopefully have him on the live show soon. But Parafractic, I don't know if you followed him. And
Oh,
this is
that
just
the Lego C64. You
Brick
have to see this. It's
64.
amazing.
I know. I'm ready to go buy. I'm ready to go out and buy the kit. It looks really cool. And actually, my Commodore 64 case had kind of seen better days, so I'm almost like tempted to buy it, build it, and put the logic board and everything in there, just to restore it back to its original glory. Really great idea on his part. And did you know that he actually has a page up on Lego.com? Yeah, he's actually getting votes, and if he gets 1,000 votes, Lego might actually make this into a commercial kit, which is really.
I'd buy it.
Cool.
I'm not even really a big C64 guy. I'd buy it.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. But this goes back to show you that there is a growing group of people that want to go back to some simpler gaming. To some simpler computers, and even going back to what we talked about with Fallout 76 earlier, right? Removing single player out of that, right? It's about gaming that you really want to do, and do I want to go and play with a whole network of people from the United States, the United Kingdom, and everywhere else in between? No, I don't. I'm a single player. There's on occasion I'll play with some other people, but at the end of the day, what I love to do is go on the couch, get my Nintendo Switch or my RetroPie, boot it up on this TV or whatever other console I have connected at the time, and get that running.
Most definitely.
I get more satisfaction out of something like this, a Sega Genesis, playing Sonic the Hedgehog, than I will out of a massively.
I love this myself. Thing. This thing is great.
I know.
Love this thing.
I know. It's really cool, right? I mean, so that's
Nintendo did it right. But
Nintendo did it right, yeah.
But you also have people now coming out with arcade cabinet replicas. Now we've seen sketchy legal ones for years now. MAME cabinets. I mean, let's face it. Most of these have games that aren't fully licensed. They're selling them at stores and things like that for bars and things like that. And they're in a sketchy area in terms of legalities. Well, Arcade 1-Up has said, well, we're going to fully license these, create 3/4 scale arcade cabinets, and release these things fully licensed with authentic looking and feeling, authentic arcade feel. Personally, I think they're kind of impressive. Have you played with one yet? I did. They had one on display at Walmart, and got to play with it this weekend. It was okay.
Yeah,
if you're not standing up to it.
Yeah, I've not played with it. I've not had a chance to play it yet. But I played with similar cabinets. Yeah. It is a very sketchy proposition because of the licensing side. But right now there's a dime a dozen manufacturers that have cropped up, and they're making arcade cabinets. In fact, a friend of mine used to work for one of those or people.
But I think this is the first one that's actually commercially or in like Walmart or in stores, not sold through a website.
Technically, no. There was one actually sold through the big box retailer, BJ Wholesale Club and Costco. Okay. Yeah. So very similar to this, but they kind of fizzled out. Yeah. So these guys are the latest to attempt that. I mean, they're available in quite a number of places. Walmart, Fi's. I think there was some talk of some other chains like Best Buy, stuff like that, but I don't remember if that actually came on. I mean, I see you have the website up. If you scroll down it actually says where it's available.
Oh yeah, they're available at a lot of different retailers: Walmart, Target, GameStop, Fry's, Home Depot, FYE. I mean, they're available to the full Dillard's. You know, they're Dillard's of all places, of course. Dillard's. I used to work there. They sold whenever they have weird kitschy stuff, they'd always sell it. But I mean, look at this thing. You've got a Final Fight cabinet that comes with Final Fight 1944 Ghouls and Ghosts, and Can't see what the last one is. You got a Centipede machine with Missile Command and Millipede. You got a Galaga and Galaxy machine. Rampage with Rampage, the 2-player Gauntlet. Joust and Defender. Gauntlet, I heard, has a few issues because it's a modified ROM. They took out the Atari copyright, and I think it caused some problems. Street Fighter 2 with 3 of the more popular Street Fighter 2 versions, including Championship, Turbo, and Super Street Fighter 2. No Super Street Fighter 2 Turbo. Oh, no, Super Street Fighter 2 Turbo. Super Street Fighter 2, which I don't think I'd have included Super Street Fighter and Super Street Fighter 2 Turbo. And Championship Edition along with Asteroid, Lunar Lander, and a few other games. So, I mean, personally, it's a cool looking cabinet. They're 45 inches, 45.8 inches high, 63 pounds, 17-inch LCD screen, different controls based on the game. Some have spinners, some have arcade sticks. They're reasonably nice. You have to sit down at it. They get a little cramped if you have more than one person on it. Really, it's a bigger problem with games like Rampage and Street Fighter.
Right.
Overall, they're nice little things. Would I buy one? Maybe, but I don't know. I think they're like $300.
So I come from the old school mentality that I would like to. I'm the type of person who will want to actually, get an old arcade cabinet, rip it apart, put a MAME cabinet in, and or put MAME on it and call it at the end of the day. I'm the same way. Yeah, I mean, would I buy this? Considering that my busy work life balance that I'm trying to maintain here, maybe. I have a basement that I still need to fill with a pool table, a bar, and
it's cool for people who are casual gamers who want that arcade feel in their house. It's an alternative because most of those arcade machines, the full size ones, cost about $1,000. This thing's $250. Much more economical, more affordable, and not as many games, but it looks cool in your like basement bar or in your game room or in your theater room or something.
So the little question is, yeah, exactly. Well, I have my studio / main cave right here that could easily accommodate that. So
I'm building mine.
So from my standpoint, it's a possibility. I'm going to be curious to see how long it is before somebody actually hacks into this because
I'm sure they already have.
Yeah, you think? I mean, it's
didn't take them but a month to get into to break the. I didn't even take it less than a week before they broke the NES Classic.
Yes, and less than a week for the Switch and all that stuff. Yeah, I mean, I guess it's gonna be sooner rather than later there. So, it's a good concept. But I look at it from the marketing side, as I am a marketer in my day job, right? I think from that standpoint, it's going to be a passing fad, just like the last time they attempted it. You'll see it for maybe 1 to maybe 2.5 years. People will buy it at the price point, bring it home, play it for a little bit, and it's going to sit in their basement until you see a listing on Craigslist for $50. So to me, I think it's another it's going to be another fad. I mean, that's the whole thing. It's just I saw
how many people are sitting on those SNES Classics still trying to sell them.
Yeah, I have one upstairs. I mean, I'm not going to sell it because I collect anyway. Like,
but those scalpers. I bought a ton of them, and
well, that's the problem because
they're sitting on them like Joker and Dark Knight, sitting on that mound of money. So now it's N64 Classics or a Super Nintendo Classic.
Yeah, the thing is that I mean, I don't know. I had to, thanks to those people, I had to actually buy a second generation NES Classic, and that put me into the problems with the latency and other issues there, because my understanding is that the original NES Classic didn't
same exact hardware.
It was the same exact
hardware. There's no difference. In fact, the hardware in the NES Classic is the same as the Super Nintendo Classic. It's just a different case and different software. They are both the same. There is no change. In fact, if you take apart the SNES Classic, the inside is the same board, from my understanding, as the NES Classic. It's a little, obviously there's some rearrangements, but it's pretty much the same exact. It is the same exact thing. Actually, I think they are the exact same board. But, so my question is, if they make an N64 classic, which they keep talking about, you going to buy that?
Well, I'll put it to you this way. If my wife sees it for sale again on Amazon with a coupon code, yes.
Okay. Well, they keep talking about the N64 classic. Now, we're going to do a whole show on these retro consoles coming out.
Yep.
We plan on doing a whole show on those. But to me, it's more emulation than replication. Yeah, or it's simulation rather than emulation. Same thing with the PS1. I'm pretty sure it's going to be a software emulator that's going to do some high-level 3D transcoding to some sort of cheap 3D encoder on the chip. Because face it, 2D sprite generation and stuff like that doesn't require a lot of horsepower. 3D does. Even if you're taking an older 3D console and convert and translating it to a modern system, it still takes quite a bit of power. I mean, hell, we still can't emulate damn Saturn. It's true. So that's what we're looking at there. But I don't really want to see an N64 classic. I think it won't live up to my expectations because they'll have to tinker with it. I have a feeling they're going to upscale the graphics and it won't look the same. That's just my feeling.
So we have the chicken or egg question here because we said the same thing with the PlayStation Classic, right?
Well, we haven't seen it yet. It could suck.
It is going to suck. That's the problem.
Oh, but software alone, but I'm talking about the hardware.
Yeah, but we already.
I want to see what's under the hood of that thing. I really do.
Yeah, I mean, I'll be curious of that as well. I mean, there's going to be obviously a lot of YouTubers that will do that whole thing.
They'll do teardowns.
Yeah, but the thing is that we already know it sucks. The game list. It's like maybe less than a few that will actually like sit and give time to play. But then it's going to collect dust on our shelves. I mean, that's the whole thing. I mean, I didn't pre-order it from the beginning. And I'm not going to order it now because until it goes down like $25 or something. Because at the end of the day, it's just not worth it.
I have a lot of those on disc.
Yeah, exactly. That's
in reality, it's a lot easier to find PlayStation 1 games than it is NES, and a lot of them are a lot cheaper, and because they're so supply and demand, there's more of them. You know how it is. So.
Well, look how many PlayStations have been sold over the years, right?
I mean, the original PlayStation 1 was one of the highest selling consoles of all time. I think the PlayStation 2 is the highest selling console of all time.
Yes, next to the NES. That was the only other.
No, I think it's even bigger than the NES. I think it still is the highest grossing of all.
No, I'm saying the NES has it unseated the NES as the
it did. And because the PlayStation 3, PlayStation 1 had 10 million units and PlayStation 2 had 155. So that's an unmitigated success.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And so, but personally, to me, my favorite game of all time is Twilight Princess, or is that Breath of the Wild?
Yeah, Zelda Breath of the Wild.
Yep, that's my favorite game of all time. But before that, Ocarina of Time.
Yes.
And to me, Ocarina of Time was the absolute pinnacle of gaming. A lot of people probably will disagree with that. They'll go Grand Theft Auto 3 or something else. I don't know. But to me, Zelda Ocarina of Time set that gold standard, and every game after that kind of tried to emulate that style.
Hey, we're having some technical difficulties on the live stream. Just FYI. Okay. Yeah. All right, now I think it caught up.
Okay. But I think that Ocarina of Time is one of my favorite games of all time. I play it once a year. I love that game. And I'm 20 years. I'm playing it right now after 20 years. You know what? I'm still impressed by what they managed to accomplish with that game 20 years ago today. 20 years ago.
I love Ocarina of Time. It was one of the first N64 games I got. And still is a game that just resonates with me. It's also a game that I still have yet to complete after all these years. It's the Zelda series and overall is just something I pick up, play like a maniac for days and weeks on end, and then get frustrated and put it down again, and come back to it again, and then do that. In fact, it took me about 5-6 years to complete the original Legend of Zelda. So that gives you an idea of just how frustrated of a gamer that I am with that. It's an awesome game, and I absolutely love it because it broke so many barriers. If my memory is correct, a lot of the features that they put in Ocarina of Time were features that they initially wanted to put in Super Mario 64.
Both were developed simultaneously.
Correct.
Ocarina and Mario, or Ocarina and Mario 64 shared a very similar situation as the original Super Mario Brothers and Zelda.
Mm-hmm.
For those that know, pretty much what they did was when they made the Legend of Zelda and Mario, they said if it didn't go in Zelda, if it didn't feel like Mario, go in Zelda. It didn't feel like Zelda, go in Mario. That's why Mario is a linear score-based game, whereas Zelda is an open-world exploration game where there's really no score. That's how both those games were designed, and that's the methodology behind it. Ocarina and Super Mario 64 had a similar methodology, whereas Mario 64 is a collectathon, Zelda was not. In fact, I don't know if you know this, the original version of Ocarina, they did not think they could design it to be that way with the open world in Hyrule. They thought they were going to have to do it with a hub world similar to Mario 64, and you'd travel to the various areas through the hub world, which was supposed to be Ganon's castle. They worked around that and ended up with Hyrule Field. But originally, that was the original idea, was it was going to be very similar to Mario 64. Luckily, we didn't end up with that. Yeah, and the one feature that I think is the key to the Zelda or Ocarina working, and something that Mario 64 did have problems with and still does, is the camera. The Z targeting solved so many problems with the camera. Because let's face it, Mario 64's camera, now, for a game made back in 1996, I think it was in 96 when that came out, the camera is great. It's phenomenal. Because to be honest, there are no other 3D games at the time that had a camera that actually kind of worked. Really wasn't.
Right.
But, now Mario or Zelda just took it another step further and made it even better. So, and that's kind of why, to me, Mario 64 and Zelda are two of the most influential games for 3D gaming. But Zelda is a better game. It took what Mario did and refined it and made it better. And everything, most 3D platformers and 3D games you think of have Zelda to thank for those mechanics. I mean, you really look at it back then, you had Sonic Adventure came out around the same time. Let's be honest, as much as Sonic Adventure is a liked game, it's not very good. It's got a lot of wonky controls, and it's a pain in the ass to play.
It is.
Crash Bandicoot isn't really 3D because half the time you're on a 2D game or a forward and backward game. To be honest, it reminds me a lot of the Mickey's the Mickey Mania game for Genesis, just with a Bandicoot. In fact, it does look and feel very much that way. Or you had Resident Evil, which everything was just pre-rendered. Zelda and Mario took it into 3D, and that's why, to me, up until Breath of the Wild, Ocarina of Time was the greatest game of all time.
So that's what Nintendo does. They innovate. I mean, look at all the things that they've done over the years. You look at the history of Nintendo from its beginnings. They were always about gaming, entertainment, and fun. They did it with their playing cards. They did it with the toys that they released. I think one of the more exotic toys that they made was a love tester in Japan. And that was an interesting one there. But then you go into some of the finer points. they rescued the North American game market from oblivion.
I'd argue they rescued the game market, period. Because the Master System was bigger in other markets. Mm-hmm. The NES was what made gaming popular again. Because let's face it, the European market wasn't as big, or the European market wasn't as influential as the North American market and Japanese market was.
Right.
Sega they were doing all right in the Japanese market, but Nintendo thoroughly trounced them there. They trounced them in the North American market with the NES. Mm-hmm. And it did. And it's the game that broke Atari. It's the system that broke Atari. Because Atari they pretty much had a stranglehold on the market. Yeah, you had the Intellivision, your beloved Intellivision.
I love my Intellivision.
Yeah. And you had other consoles as well. I can't think of many off the top of my head. I'm sorry. God, blinking on me. I mean, the ColecoVision, the Intellivision. Mm-hmm. You had other consoles, but the Atari 2600 was the system. People played Atari. Then it became people played Nintendo.
Yep.
And that was a generational thing. You know, when people said they're playing, they didn't say they're playing video games. We're playing Nintendo. What are you playing? Nintendo. Even when it's Super Nintendo, I'm playing Nintendo. I'm playing Nintendo with the Nintendo 64. You know, that didn't really change until Sony. Sony changed that.
That it says I'm playing PlayStation, right? No, I get that whole
Nobody
thing,
says that. No, it's just we're playing video games.
But. They were playing video games now. I mean, I'm playing my PlayStation. That's what I would have said. But then it goes back to, you're absolutely right. I mean, they did rescue the video game market, period, from oblivion. But the nice thing
full disclosure, Nintendo fanboy. I'm sorry.
Yeah, well, I have my share of Nintendo consoles too. In fact, I have an original NES.
They're not perfect, but they are not perfect.
No, but
I will fully admit they've made some big follies. I think the Wii was a big misstep.
The
Wii U, rather.
Yeah, the Wii U. I mean, well, actually, let's.
We could do a whole show on that.
Yeah, but it goes back to what I'm trying to say about innovation, right? If you actually look at the Wii U, there's more innovation within that whole thing versus versus the other consoles. Like I don't know if you're aware, but the screen that they have for the Wii U, like you can literally put it down and you can do motions over the screen. And do all that. I mean, there was no other console out there that had that capability.
And people joke they thought the screen was the console. Their next system, the screen was the console.
Exactly.
You know, they probably should have skipped the Wii U and went straight to the Switch. They probably would. The Wii went straight to the Switch. Probably would have been a little better. I mean, the Switch is selling like hotcakes, so obviously they tapped something there again, and that's something Nintendo's been very good at for a very long time. Is they're like Apple. They can read trends. They know where things are going. Yep. You know, they're not gonna create the most powerful console in the market. They never have and never will. Mm-hmm. But what they make is a platform for games that are fun to play.
Yep.
And to me, that's kind of what we're kind of lacking. Going back to Fallout 76, kind of what we're lacking in this day and age.
I agree, and again, that goes back to what they're taking away from us as gamers. The single player gaming that we all loved. I mean, look, as I said, I'm not going to go on a server and play with other people. I don't want to do that. I want to sit on my couch. I want to either have the Switch or a similar system or a controller, or in my case, lately I've been getting back into MS-DOS games on my RetroPie, right? Sit there, play a game of Command and Conquer, play a game of SimCity 2000, play Transport Tycoon Deluxe, and just play the game and stay up till 2 in the morning trying to shoot the Russian soldiers, or shoot the Allied soldiers, or stop my constituents from revolting. About where I want to put a power plant. Those are the games that I like.
And now we got, gaming is a social thing, and obviously with live streaming has taken off. We both do live streaming, And you've had devices like the Elgatos and things like that that can capture live PC gaming. You know, Valve tried to get in this market with their little Steam box. Or not the Steam box, I'm sorry, the Steam Link, which was supposed to broadcast to your TV over the network, if your network was robust enough to do it. But looks like Steam abandoned that project, and they're selling them off in fire sales now. But they're still insisting that they're going to develop their own OS for the PC to play games. You know, and I'm like, really, Steam? Why? Nobody wants this. Nobody wants this. Just keep your marketplace up. You've got a good model right now. You kind of got a stranglehold on PC gaming between you and Origin and whatever Ubisoft uses. Uplay. You kind of each carved your own piece of that market. And for the most part, Steam rules all.
Yeah.
I mean, Valve is mostly known for the creators of Steam more than... Hey, you remember when they made Half-Life?
Yes.
You know, another defining moment in gaming was Half-Life. I mean, when you talk about a defining game, I'll easily say that ranks up there with Arc Arena. But, you know, Half-Life 2 was amazing. You never had storytelling like that in a FPS up till then, really, except maybe Halo. But I think it's after Halo. No, it's before Halo. But
one or the other.
Yeah. Why do they keep trying to do this? Does anybody want a Steam OS, a Linux operating system to run games? What is the point?
So I'd like to hear what our audience thinks. So please comment and let us know. We'll join you. We'll add you to the chat.
Who wants this thing? Let us know. You know what? We're this is a call-in show, by the way.
Yes.
Send us a message in the chat saying you want to call in. We'll post the Hangout link and you can join us. This is a call-in show.
Yes,
so
absolutely.
Please let us know and we'll let you join in. I'm not clamming for this. I mean, I did my bid for Linux gaming back in the 90s and late 90s, early 2000s with Wine. We had a few Linux ports of Quake and a few other games that were okay. But you know what? It was so much easier to run on PC.
You know,
You're a Mac user.
I am a Mac user.
What do you play games on? The Mac with the compatibility layer, or are you in there playing on Windows PC?
Well, I dual boot, and you know, when I want to do the PC, I'll just boot into Windows 10, or I'll use the compatibility layer on Wine. But most of the time, I'm just on my retro gaming PC, my RetroPie install. You know, I remember seeing this when they first announced this, and I really questioned why, and it just because the PC market, the Mac market, they have such a huge dominance, right? In terms of users and all that stuff. Steam made the right decision. They put themselves in as an on-demand service, similar to Origin and all that stuff as you mentioned.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, you know, that holy grail is to look at building that captive audience. So while a lot of people use their PCs for certain things,
right.
Plugging into a TV, unless you have the knowledge like you and I do, or even some of our audience.
That's easier now. You can just plug into an HDMI port on your PC and bam, you're up and running.
This is true.
I mean, it's a lot easier now than it used to be. You know, we had to use a special video card that would output to a TV with S-video or composite, or you know, a lot of generations of video cards you could output with a component video. Directly with component video to 1080p or 720p or 1080i without much with ease. That's been around since GeForce, probably the 26 to 200 series. So it's been around for about 10-15 years. To do it.
Yeah,
HDMI just made it easier, but at the same time, it's kind of one of those things of look. Microsoft and Sony have carved a niche for the casual market, and Nintendo. Sorry. Nintendo.
Right.
God, I forgot. Oh, Reggie. But Nintendo, they have that market of the casual gamer locked in, or the general gamer. I'm not going to use the term casual gamer, the general gamer. But the hardcore gamers, the PC gamers, you're not gonna. If that's what Valve is trying to tap into, this isn't going to do it with the Steam boxes or the Steam OS, because they're just going to stick with Windows. It works, and the casual market could give two shits about it, because to them, the Steam box is it a computer? Well, I got a computer. What do I need a computer for to play video games? I got me an Xbox or PlayStation 4 that does the same thing.
Yeah, so correct me if I'm wrong, but isn't this isn't the back end something along the lines of Linux anyway?
It's Linux.
Yeah, so
it's Linux, and it's actually the GUI I think is GNOME running Linux. I'm not sure what distribution. I think it's some custom version that they build. I don't know if it's built on Debian or Red Hat. I think it's some custom built Linux environment, but. It uses apt, it does use apt, so it's Debian based somewhat.
Yeah, so little tip to the audience: you can download all those components online. Linux, Debian, or Ubuntu, which is the better distributions, all free,
right?
And you can download it, put it on your retro gaming PC or whatever else. Either install Steam derivative or even RetroPie, and you have a similar service.
Yeah, and not only that,
for lower cost.
But not only that, you're playing. Well, this is designed to play modern games.
Yeah, but you can still play modern games.
They want to compete with. Well, they want to compete with like they're supposed to run Arkham Knight, Street Fighter V, Witcher 3, Total War Rome 2. This is supposed to run these big AAA titles, but again, someone has to convert these and develop for them. And we've seen in the past, there is no market to develop for Linux. People have tried. It's been one of these pipe dreams that people have had for almost 2 decades now. Nobody cares.
Nobody cares.
No, but there isn't a big enough. Nobody is demanding Steam OS. No one.
They're not.
Except for these people who want to go outside the box. There's always those people. I want to be outside the box. I don't want to be part of that group. I want to be that rebel. But the rebel doesn't have a lot of money usually, and they're not going to invest a ton of money into this platform. So
that's the thing, right? It's in fact, I think the only real derivative of Linux to make money is Mac OS X, because it's based off of a Linux backend, right? And Apple, it goes back to what we talked about, and it's almost a theme of this whole show, is that there are certain companies that know what to do and do it right. Okay, so we have that theme with Apple, who had the vision to buy Next Software, where Steve Jobs was actually developing what turned out to be OS X now. Which is
Doom. I think it was Quake was built on a Next. Didn't they develop Quake on a Next?
I think they might have. Yes, they actually developed quite a number of games on a Next, and so that's one. Then you have the other whole component there with
even Macs.
Doing the theme. Yeah,
Macs don't have a very strong gaming library.
They
do.
Yeah,
but for the most part, people don't make game on a Mac. You're gaming with it in PC mode with Windows.
Either that or with wine.
Or the wine.
So yeah, I mean, for me,
everything's better with wine.
Yes, it is. I could use a glass myself. But anyway, the whole thing is that you don't really need a big library on a Mac anyway, because you have those extensions in place. Now, let me just throw a little curveball here. In another year or two, they're going to be getting off the Intel architecture. That's going to change some of that fundamental development,
if they do it.
Yeah, well, all things are pointing to that they're going to.
And that will put that final nail in the Mac they've been wanting to put in for years.
Yeah, well, it's a possibility.
We'll talk about that when we have more information on that, when it gets closer to time for that.
Definitely.
But as big as this as PC gaming is, I will still say console gaming still reigns supreme. As much as I love my beloved PC gaming, for the general audience, console gaming is going to be where it's at.
Yep.
And the Xbox One and the PlayStation 4 are nearing their end of their life. Both have indicated clearly that they're successors. Supposedly the SDKs are already out, and developers already have them. Doesn't surprise me. But we're looking at the successors of both. They're already both going to be ATI based or AMD based. Probably Ryzen's with their GPU CPU combos, which wouldn't surprise me. Personally, I like NVIDIA's RTXs, but they're a bit pricey.
Right.
But we're going to continue that going forward with that. But the big thing is, and this is rearing its head again. Sony, rumors are Sony is going to be getting rid of the disc. Now, we heard this with Microsoft tried to do this last time. What happened, George? Do you remember what happened?
Please, by all means, remind us, my friend.
The peasants revolted.
Yes, they did.
They revolted. And revolted to the point where Microsoft won't release how many Xbox Ones they've sold, because I have a feeling it's quite embarrassing. Probably not so much now, but let me tell you right now, people were poised to buy the Xbox 4 over the Xbox One over the PS4, and how quickly people switched when they found out that they were going to not let you. Well, originally they were not going to let you trade in games. The system had to be always connected to the internet, and they were pushing you towards digital downloads over disc, which broadband still is not ubiquitous in the United States. Rural America has crap broadband availability. We don't have it. I have one service provider, and it takes me forever to download a game.
Yeah, I'm a little luckier here. I'm kind of in what is classified as rural New Jersey, if you'll believe it. There actually is areas
in the middle of the Pine Barrens.
No, well, I'm in northwest New Jersey, near the mountains and the skiing and all that stuff. But I luckily have broadband, but there are people like literally right down the road, similar development, that their only option is either a 5 Mbps connection through CenturyLink or satellite internet. They don't have anything else that they can get.
Where I live, we have Comcast. And if you know, Comcast puts caps on you. They're not the best. And if you don't have Comcast, you have satellite. Have you ever used satellite? I have. It's awful.
It is.
It's you can't do gaming because it isn't real time. There is high latency. It's the concept I use with my broadband, where I say there's a broadband is like a Ferrari, or is like a big truck. Okay, now it may not be super fast, but it gets you. It transports a lot of data at once from point A to point B. That's actually how broadband works. That's why it's called broadband. It isn't actually fast. It's just a very large pipe to put that data on. Fiber, different, and Ethernet, but it's a broadband. Satellite has a very big freaking truck. But it is so slow.
They are improving it.
It doesn't matter, because unless you get the satellites closer to the Earth, you still got to go from point A to. You still got to shoot your satellite up to the satellite. You're still limited by radio transmissions there. Yeah, you can't defy physics. You can increase the bandwidth, but the latency will always exist.
The latency will definitely exist. I think the way they've gotten around it is they do a part of it is a dial-up and the rest is satellite.
Well, no, they got rid of that years ago. Now it's actually both.
Did?
It's both. You can send and receive with the satellite. And it works good. I mean, when I used it, it was fine for what I was doing, but you're still you're capped. You have certain amounts you could do during the day. At off peak, you have unlimited for updates and things like that. But if you download on peak, they'd throttle you, and there's a lot of problems with that. If you want to see me go into details on that, check out Quit Your Whining. I did an episode on broadband where I talked all about the hell that was satellite internet.
Yeah, so here's the thing with that, right? I mean, if broadband was truly ubiquitous throughout the United States, we wouldn't have Redbox at every
yeah,
right?
most definitely.
Yeah. I mean, right now I'm lucky because I have close to 100 Mbps down and 10 up, so I can do some pretty good things. It's not FiOS or anything like that, but still, it's good enough to do a live stream or stream whatever shows I want and do a bunch of stuff. But at the end of the day, I think what we're looking at is the eventual inevitability of where we're supposed to go.
Yeah.
I mean, media, to make media is a costly proposition. It's not going any cheaper, especially if you look at global trade and where we're going with that. It's going to get more and more pricier from that standpoint. Unless if we start building in the United States, which is a possibility. In fact, they're talking about automation taking over manufacturing in the United States, and we're supposed to become more competitive based on that. But for right now, I would look at it from the standpoint if we don't go to an infrastructure of sorts and a method of delivery for these media pieces, then we're going to see an increase in cost on the media. I mean, a lot of people in the middle U.S. And you had that broadband map that you came up with.
1 second, I'll put that back up.
Yeah, please put that back up because that's going to prove my point, right?
Yeah,
you got a lot of you got a lot of people that are
look at this. West Virginia alone has no broadband, almost has low broadband. For West Virginia, you got parts of Pennsylvania. You've got Ohio. Ohio. Oh God, you go to the Midwest, to the Midwest, you're looking at broadband. You got Wyoming, Montana, parts of Colorado, Texas, New Mexico, Arizona. Less than 50% have access to at least 6 megabits.
Yep.
Now this. Oh wait. Well, this is actually current as of 2011. This one's a bit dated. Okay, let's find a more recent one. I just realized that. That's
I don't think it's going to be much different. But
no, it's not. The new broadband is 20. 20 is what they want. But what they're actually trying to do by saying it's 20. Here we go. This is data as of right now. So hang on. Well, here's the thing, though. You're also not including what they're going to include as mobile broadband. Now, the problem with mobile broadband, and I've said this for a while, is you are still limited with mobile broadband.
Yep.
Because they are capped. Yeah, they say they're unlimited. They're not.
They're not.
You look at it. It says 20 gig. If you go over 20 gigs, you're dropping.
Yep.
Most games nowadays are anywhere between there we go. 15 or anywhere between 25 and 50 gigs a piece to download a game. You're going to blow through that cap with 1 game a month.
Exactly.
And Comcast is 1 terabyte a month. You can blow through that like that unless you pay an extra $50 like I do with streaming and everything else. You're not only that, the real reason they want to get rid of it is they hate GameStop. They hate the resale market because in their mind, every time I don't know if you know this, in reality, I think GameStop only makes about $5 off every new game sold. Somewhere around $5 to $10. The rest of it all goes to Sony and the publisher, or Microsoft, Sony, and the publisher. So, and there is a licensing fee, a rather hefty licensing fee from Sony and Microsoft and Nintendo. They collect theirs, and the rest goes to the publisher. Just like movies, you know why you pay so much for your popcorn and soda? Because the majority of that box office goes to the studio, not to you, not to the theater. Same thing with gaming. But
Yeah.
when they sell used, all that's pure profit for GameStop.
Mm-hmm.
And they hate that because
Yep.
in their mind, every used game is a loss of profit for the game company.
Well, it's more than that. I mean, GameStop could obviously afford to stay in the firefight, right, with the licensing and all that stuff, and the massive trader market. Albeit, the one challenge with GameStop is that they don't sit and verify what they get. I mean, you see stories of games you're buying either online from GameStop versus going there.
How many fake retro games have they sent out?
Yeah, exactly.
Hey, we sent someone DuckTales 2 with a Mike Tyson punch out inside of it.
Exactly. But
Too
it
bad
also
he spent $250 on it.
Yeah, exactly. But it also gets out, kind of pushes the mom and pop gaming stores out of whack because they have to pay those licensing fees too.
Well, I mean, I've talked to a few of them, and most of them kind of stay in business because of the fact that new games aren't where they're making the money. They're making money on the retro game market.
Exactly.
And it is the retro gaming market has been booming in the last couple of years.
It has.
I mean, just look at price charting and see how much games have gone up. Games that you could buy a couple of years ago at $5-10 are somewhere in the $50, $60, even $100 range.
I know. It's insane how much has blown up. And these are all
habit.
Yeah, I mean, and these, and I'm lucky to have the collection that I have. I
wish I kept all mine back in the day. I'm trying to rebuild, but oh my God, is it making me broke?
Yeah,
I got kids.
So
I get a second job to afford those.
Yeah, I got 2 kids myself, but a little side tip on shopping for that. Just look for the cartridges or games that are kind of a little worn.
Oh yeah,
and they're easy to restore. In fact,
that label's damaged, I'll go buy it. I don't care. It's got some Sharpie on it. I can get rid of that. Oh, the contact's a little corroded. Man, clean that.
Exactly.
I've found some great deals on games that look like crap. I've managed to restore with a new label and stuff. Look, I'm not I'm not an original collector or nothing, because to me, I'm in it to play the game. I'm not anti-reproduction. There are some games I will be buying reproductions of because I'm not spending $275 for a damn Earthbound cartridge. No, I'm sorry. You're not going to sell me on that. I'm not going to buy DuckTales 2 for that price. It's just you're being stupid and unreasonable.
Well, here's the thing, right? It's a lot of people have questioned whether or not, and this goes back to GameStop and all that stuff. Yeah. A lot of people question, why do people go out and buy these rundown games or rundown systems and sit and restore them? And there's a big reason why. It's because of the fact that if buying these things it's history for one. But if you're going to buy it in pristine condition, it's expensive as hell. No. And that's a challenge there. Like I bought
a really crappy beat up Nintendo and restored it. It was great.
Exactly. I got
a Kappa system.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I've yet to do that myself. But that's the point. I mean, we have part of it is also buying history, right? So when you go to a GameStop, when you go to that whole thing, buying those old games, it gives substance to the it takes you back. And for Microsoft and Sony and all these other companies, that is something that they need to take advantage of. Now they've taken advantage of it with those retro consoles.
Sony has, and I'll say this, okay, and this is where I see a problem being. Sony has embraced the retro market in terms of making their back catalog readily available. The PS1 classics and the PS2 classics and the PlayStation 3, and I think the PlayStation 4 has some too, has worked really well. They sell a lot of their older games back catalog, not just Sony, but from other publishers too on the PlayStation Store, on the Sony Store, PlayStation Store. And it's very popular. Same with Nintendo. Nintendo kind of started it with the Virtual Console, but Sega went all in on it. Microsoft hasn't really embraced it completely, but that's up to them. But what you're looking at here, even if you're in that digital store, that digital marketplace, they're not always going to be there. Now, I know they say, well, once you buy it, it'll always be in your library and always be available. Yeah, that's true. For now.
Yeah.
We've seen Nintendo has already gone, and the Nintendo has already closed the Wii store. Mm-hmm. Anything you buy on the Wii, you'll never be able to get again if it is on your Wii.
Yep.
The Wii U store will probably be going that way soon as well. Now, Sony has kept their store compatible with PlayStation 3 and the 4, but again, the 3 and the 4 are the only two that really have that ability. Microsoft has maintained compatibility between the Xbox 360 and the Xbox One. But it doesn't mean that's going to stay that way. You and I work in technology. There's going to be a point where they're going to be like, look, we can't support this platform anymore due to we're sunsetting this. There's security issues we cannot address. Something like that pops up. Sony's had security problems out the gate, but we've seen that. Once they find a problem that can't be patched because they're no longer supporting the older platform, like the Xbox 360 or the PS3, they will close that door. That door will be closed forever, and you will never be able to get those games that you once had access to. And I can promise you that day will happen.
I don't disagree with you on that one, man.
I've had people say, no, it's not. It will. We work technology. We know that those doors shut. They shut the door on Windows XP. We thought that day would never happen. I know.
And yet, Windows XP is still used in about 15 to 20% of machines across the world. Even without that, talk about cybersecurity.
That's scary.
So talk about a cybersecurity incident waiting to happen. The thing is that it's a transition. We made a transition from cartridges to CDs. We made a transition from CDs.
We've also seen the CD come back. Movies are video and audio is a good example here.
Yes.
MP3s are dominant, but people are going back to CD and vinyl. Now vinyl's more of a niche thing, but CDs are on a rise again. People are buying the albums again. People buy more albums on CDs, according to NDP data, than they do than buying digital. Now, individual songs still is out. Actually, even individual songs aren't sold, mostly because you can get it by other means, YouTube, Spotify, Pandora, whatever. But if you're buying music, they're mostly buying it on CD. They're not buying it digitally.
Well, that's the thing, and if you follow Tecmo, right, the channel there, I mean, he talks about a lot of these systems that are now cropping up once again to play medium, and not just, and I also qualify that.
We're going to see mini disc make a comeback. I don't care what anybody says.
No, mini disc is a dead medium, just like Betamax, right?
Look, VHS is not going to make a comeback. Quit telling me this.
Well, I mean,
there's some niche things that making a comeback, I know, but it's not, DVD is still around. DVD is still around. And to be honest, DVD sales are still higher than Blu-ray sales.
It is. And the reason why is because DVDs are cheaper to make than Blu-rays.
Same price. But more people have a DVD player than a Blu-ray player.
Well, I mean
you got to remember what made the DVD popular. PlayStation 2.
Exactly. Yep. The thing you raise a good point about the medium side, because we are coming around in full circle, because it goes back to what we talked about earlier, right? People want to relive elements of their childhood, right? And so they're going to want to take the LPs, they're going to want to take the CDs, even cassette tapes are making a comeback. There's some if you actually look online, there's
some retro one. They've done some VHS re-releases of older films, and some new films have had VHS releases and kind of a cool collector's edition. They've done that a couple of times. Horror films mainly, and like exploitation films, things like that. They've done that a couple times recently.
Absolutely, but but again, it goes back full circle. My wife was telling me about a year ago, 2 years ago, it's like, we're all these electronic things, right? But I guarantee you, like, books are going to make a comeback, CDs are going to make a comeback. Next thing I know, I'm
going. We've already seen Amazon say, "Oh yeah, you bought this book, yeah, Or how about movies you buy online where if you move to another country, because that movie is owned by another company in that region, you can no longer view that movie because, you went from Australia to the United States and the license changed. So guess what? That movie you bought on iTunes, it's cool. We'll give you 3 free rentals as compensation. Okay? Great.
Yeah, it's just...
I saw that article a few weeks ago, and that's not the only instances. I mean, I can take my DVDs and go to the Arctic and still play the stupid thing on the same DVD player because it works. But I can't take my iPhone. If I had one, I don't own an iPhone. I could take my phone, go to Australia, try to watch the same thing in the iTunes library, and it doesn't work. Why? Because region lock on a digital device.
Yep.
But that MP4 works. But region encoding is going to cause us problems with that. And you're also going to possibly run into the same situation with digital, too, because you really think about it, games are not all distributed by the same company in every region. Nintendo may release something in the United States, but don't release it in Japan. It could be released by Square or Atlas. Sony releases stuff here they don't release in other regions because the company who developed it has publishing ability in their home country where they don't here. You see this kind of stuff all the time. And the digital store is not forever. I'm sorry. It is not a forever place. It's convenient, which I could see being a reason to keep it, is it's convenient. You're not having to go out and buy the game, but at the same time, I think it's going to hurt the game market because a lot of people buy used games. Now, used game sales have been on the decline recently, according to recent GameStop numbers. They have been going down, mainly because I think people are just saying, I can spend the $60 and not get off my butt and eat my pizza and drink my soda, drink my Coca-Cola and just watch there. I'm sorry, I'm going Southern, but I'm just doing that. Or I can do that and not bother going to the game store, but I can go spend $40 and get the same game used, but you know what? I am already in my pajamas. And that's exactly what they do. It's like Amazon. Amazon price cuts. Why? They can sell for the same price people buy because they don't want to get up and go to Walmart and buy crap. They don't have to. No. Buy off Amazon.
Well, with respect for Amazon, for me, it's convenience with 2 kids and
bingo. It's same thing with gaming. It's convenient for the people, and the convenience factor is the only thing that is what's going to keep it going. But that convenience factor, I hate to say it, could also spell a problem for the video game for the market, because if you get rid of the physical market, you're going to be eliminating a good chunk of your audience, people who don't have broadband access or do buy used, and they're no longer going to be buying games. The retailers who have to sell the used games are going to go out of business. It means GameStop will fold, which is the largest game retailer in the United States. The mom and pops don't really sell used games. At that point, you're mainly limited to Best Buy, Target, and Walmart. And at that point, you're mainly just picking up. But if you're not selling, if you're not selling games, physical copies, you're not going to be making that money there either. So in reality, you're trying to say, well, we're going to force people to buy our game by going digital only. No, you're not. What you're really doing is limiting your market.
Yep.
That's all you're doing. You're cutting off the nose to spite the face. You're not solving a problem. What you're doing is creating a new problem. Digital only will not work. If anything, you'll alienate your audience. It may work for a while. But and there are certain markets where it has worked. But the only reason Steam works, is because of the fact as a PC gamer, you are tied to broadband. You're not tied to broadband as a console gamer. You're not tied to broadband as a console gamer. You're not tied to it.
So let me do this. Let me talk from a consumer perspective for a second.
Sure.
I want something tangible. Okay. If I'm gonna have my iPhone right here, all right, I want my iPhone. I don't want like a little Apple Watch that's like sitting here on the side and all that stuff.
That's like your Dick Tracy watch?
Yeah, I don't want my Dick Tracy watch. I have not bought a Dick Tracy watch yet, but
Me either.
yeah, but I've been told I'm kind of tempted. You see, if I'm gonna want to play a video game, I'm gonna want a CD or a tape. Like
Yeah.
this, for example, is A Train, right? It's kind of a more rarer PlayStation game here, and I can't really get it to work on my retro gaming PC. So I'm gonna play this on my Sony PlayStation or PlayStation 2, right? This is the game. This is one of the games that I bought recently, Mr. Do, right, for the ColecoVision, right?
Yeah.
Again, somewhat of a rare game. You see the label here.
Is A-Train a Maxis game?
Yeah, A-Train is a Maxis game. Yep.
Okay.
A-Train. Well, actually, it was released by Arctic, right? ARTDINK. So they actually had the thing, and now they're up to like A-Train 8, which is really good. One day I'll do a review of it, but it was licensed to release in the U.S. by Maxis, but in Japan and everywhere else it's Arctic, ARTDINK. Yeah. So that's one. But even with this, right? I like these tangible things.
Yeah.
So here, this is a ColecoVision cartridge. I bought this off Amazon for $8. Cleaned up the contacts. Still works. Just got to print out a new label for it, and I'm all good to go.
I'm moving. I may be moving, so I packed my DVDs. These are all DVDs in those two boxes. I probably have DVDs and Blu-rays. Probably close to about 400, 500 of them. And I still buy more, and that's not the ones that I bought recently in Black Friday and since I started packing.
Oh,
so
geez.
I, too, am a physical media collector. I always have been and always will be. And I'll tell you right now, physical media does rule to me. Everybody is always like, well, why stick with physical? There's no difference in digital. No, there is. I'm sorry.
There is.
In fact, retro games in digital sometimes don't work the same way as physical.
Absolutely.
Huh.
Yep.
Who'd have thunk that? If I plop Symphony of the Night into a PS1, it's going to look different than the digital version. In fact, some games are edited in the digital version. I have the original version of Ocarina of Time with the audio as a Muslim chant and the original star and moon symbol that they took out due to complaints from Muslim organizations about the religious imagery in the game. So Nintendo took it out as secret revisions. Yep. My version's the original uncut version, which you will never find on another system. There are several instances in which they have edited games or content that you won't see, and movies too, that you will never see unless you purchase the original medium in which they were on, or you pirate it. But,
it's funny you mentioned that, because I'll give you a prime example. I own Star Trek, the Star Trek movie series, the original movie series. On DVD, and then I own the Blu-ray version. Now the Blu-ray version is beautifully digitally mastered.
I'm sorry, I heard Star Trek the motion picture and started falling asleep.
A Star Trek motion picture to Star Trek like 10 or whatever. It's the next generation.
We'll do a special on Star Trek games and talk Star Trek at some point, because we both love Star Trek.
Yeah, I think
we did a 4TW on Star Trek a while back.
Mm-hmm. But then the thing is that I noticed something strange. Star Trek 6: The Undiscovered Country, one of my favorite movies, right? And and it's funny because if you know the series and you saw it in the theaters as well as seen it on the DVD, Rene Auberjonois, who is famous for a number of
he's the original Dango Red and Father Mulcahy in the movie version of MASH too.
Exactly, and actually, he had a stint in sitcoms. He was he was on
Frasier. He was Frasier's mentor.
Yeah, Benson. He was on a show called Benson in the late 70s, 80s. Yeah, he actually was in Star Trek 6: The Undiscovered Country.
Yes, he was.
He was in that whole thing. But you play the Blu-ray version, completely cut out.
And Star Trek the motion pictures, luckily, because The DVD special edition has different special effects, CG effects, and cleaned up a bit as an extended edition. You don't get that on the Blu-ray because they only mastered it in standard definition because they're stupid. But that version only exists that way. Star Trek 2 did have also a special edition, but they released that one on 4K and Blu-ray recently. Those only exist in those formats because, that's how it is. But,
it is.
Games are the same way. We have edited games. We have edited content, completely changed content. I have previous Saints Symphony of the Night. The recent PS4 re-release has a different dub than the original.
Mm-hmm.
And now is it better? Yeah, because the original is really rough and cheesy as hell because it's an early PlayStation game and it's rough. It's real rough. But, they changed it. And it's just like with anime, too. You watch anime, they have different dubs. Some people prefer the old ones and the more modern ones. And you can only get the old ones on like some old beat-up VHS tape.
Mm-hmm.
But digital, they can change that on you and you have no way of stopping them.
Mm-hmm.
If they decide to censor something in a digital version of the game, guess what? That update could remove that from the objectional content from the game, and you'll never see it again.
Mm-hmm.
That's happened.
I know it has.
You are at the but you know what? As long as I have that little shiny disc, it can never do that to me. Ever.
Just like this.
Or that nice inky black one for PlayStation 1.
Which I need to polish up. It's all scratched up.
Yeah.
But anyway.
It's physical to me is archival, not just as a collector, but it timestamps that point in time in which that game was made. It physically timestamps when that thing existed. And that will never change. Where a digital one can change with releases or a different or a remaster, or who knows. We can't forget where we came from, and we can't forget about physical media. I don't think they keep rumoring it. What do you think? What do you think, George? And to anyone out there, do you think they're going to get rid of the disc? What do you think? End of the day, is it really going to happen? Is this the time? They tried last time, and people revolted. Are people going to care that much this time around?
So I'm going to qualify that. In the United States, no. I think physical media is here to stay there. Abroad, in places like the APAC countries, like Japan, maybe certain areas in China, and other areas where broadband is more advanced and there's more of a mainstay. They are probably going to lean towards getting rid of it.
I could. In all honesty, I do think in the Asian market that could be the case. Europeans kind of iffy because it's very similar to us. In South America and Central America, I could see them staying physical as well. But the Asian market, I could see going full digital, especially in South Korea and Japan, maybe China. I could see that.
Yeah, and the thing is that there will be some European market places that do get rid of it as well. I would say
maybe
UK,
or maybe thinking maybe France.
I'm thinking France, Germany, those
Sweden, maybe, or Switzerland. Maybe areas where tech is big, but you're going to have places that are not that big in tech. Spain isn't that big. Italy still pretty rural in areas. Greece could go all digital, but then you got Austria, Hungary. You've got Romania. those areas, Middle East,
Yeah,
they're
the
not going to
Middle East.
be,
Yeah,
you're going to have places all over the world that don't have broadband.
Mm-hmm.
Mobile's big there, though. Mobile is big there. Mobile's bigger in Europe than here.
It is, and I think that's going to be I think that's going to be the differentiator there. If we actually have, considering that mobile is bigger in certain areas, especially like India is another big area for mobile. You might see that take over, and then that'll help to facilitate the removal of physical media. I mean, we also forget that when we look at our smartphones and our tablets and all that stuff. We don't physically have media that we can plug into these things anymore, right? So it's just basically downloading something to your smartphone via the App Store or whatever else, and then moving forward. Maybe what'll happen is that they'll figure out some way of work out some sort of agreement with the mobile manufacturers to say, okay, we'll give you
like YouTube or like they've done already, but net neutrality could negate that in the future if net neutrality were to pass.
Yeah, I mean that's a $64,000 question, whether or not that's gonna happen. I mean, a lot of these internet providers already have tested throttling back for certain
Comcast, kings of throttling.
Yes, exactly. So. And honestly, you never know whether they're doing it on purpose anyway to begin with, even without the net neutrality. I mean, it's their pipes.
Some legal. There's some things you're allowed and not allowed to do.
I know. My point is that we don't technically have proof whether or not they're doing it now because of the fact that you can't physically track it. Yeah. So that's the $64,000 question.
But a little more difficult.
Yeah, but if you're asking me whether or not physical media is going to go away, I'm gonna have a qualified yes, but it's not going to go away tomorrow. It's not going to go away.
So Sony and them could start doing the discs on the PS5. We'll call it PlayStation 5.
Yep.
But they'll slowly just phase out the disc to where it's digital only within that generation.
Yeah, and even with if you really want to be technical, right? There have outside of Xbox One, there have been attempts at going all digital already. Like the new Intellivision console that's coming out, which I forgot the name of it off the top of my head right now. That's an all digital console. The Atari box, another one. That's gonna be
but these are
digital.
also not big players such as Microsoft or Sony. I mean, there are niche markets. Like we said, Steam or PC gaming is pretty much exclusively digital downloads at this point.
Yep.
There are still physical releases at Walmart you'll see occasionally, but for the most part, it's all digital downloads.
Yep.
But again, PC gamers, that's kind of their niche. That is, they are pretty much all video game. They're all online, anyways. Amico, the Amico is what you're thinking of.
Amico, yes, thank you. It was on the tip of my tongue.
Yeah. Well, we'll talk about that next episode. We're gonna talk about
definitely
and other fabled alternative consoles. Some real, some not. Well, that's an upcoming episode. We could do a whole show on. I actually know someone who worked for Phantom.
Oh wow!
Yeah,
we should have him on the show for sure. So,
if I could get a hold of him to be on it, yeah, he's quite busy these days. But yeah, one of the guys I used to work with worked for them, and he's the guys who made the Phantom, and he could tell great stories about that.
Definitely.
So, yeah. All right. So in the end of the day, me, myself, just to wrap up on this, I don't think it's going to die. I think this is just another... They'll attempt it, but I think in the end of the day, the next generation consoles will be physical media. We still have Nintendo. Now, is it going to be a CD? Maybe not. I think we could go chip. Nintendo has shown it be viable.
Mm-hmm.
Very difficult to copy.
Mm-hmm.
Easier to... they are just about as expensive to produce as a disc.
Mm-hmm.
And you can... and easier to transport, more durable. I think that's possible. I think they could go chip. Sony has a proprietary technology already, with memory sticks. Microsoft could choose to do SD cards or their own variation thereof. And Nintendo will continue using the Switch chips, which are just an expansion on the DS technology.
Yep.
So, and they're already, and those chips are as big as 64 gigs. They're as big as a Blu-ray.
Absolutely. I mean, and it makes logical sense because at the end of the day, solid state technology has come a long way in terms of that. But it's interesting because we really went full circle in our technology things. Like if you remember, and I'm going to.
Well, I mean, if you really think about it, why did they go CD?
Right?
Why did they go CD? Why did they really go CD?
Well, the reason why they went CD was because of storage media. So basically,
cost. CDs were so much cheaper to manufacture.
That was one reason.
Than RAM chips.
That was one reason.
And ROM chips.
That was one reason. The other reason was
and storage capacity
of the media. Yeah. So basically, they're able to put more cinematic sequences and more more movies, stuff like that.
Okay, look, you and I were both around in the early days of the PS1. Yeah. Most of those games hardly took up a quarter of what the disc could. Of the 650 meg capacity. I mean, there's exceptions with things like Final Fantasy and things like that, but most of the games, even with FMVs, they didn't take up the whole disc. It was all cost.
Well,
I mean, really, you could make a CD game back then for $1 or $2, whereas a chip-based game with ROM chips was costing, what, 15 to 20 per game?
Well, hear me out for a second, right? You have the I go back to some of the development headaches they've gotten. They've had with Nintendo and Nintendo 64, right?
Yeah.
That's they were one of the last.
Them and Atari.
Yeah, them and Atari.
The which
Jaguar.
They didn't have a CD add-on for that piece of junk.
Yeah, which then gave red screens of death. Those were blue screen of death. They were the red screen of death. But the thing is that the developers back in the day, when they were trying to develop a game for Nintendo 64 versus the Sony PlayStation, and the Sony PlayStation, they were able to use more cinematic sequences, better graphics, because they had the capacity.
I'd argue with the better graphics thing.
Well, I mean, it's a $64,000 question. Developers preferred the Sony PlayStation because it was you
could easily produce titles for it.
Yes,
because
exactly.
You didn't have that that excessive publishing cost. Most people don't know this. Nintendo controlled the cartridge market. Every NES cartridge made was manufactured by Nintendo. It said Konami on it. Nintendo controlled access to the PCBs, the chips, and the cartridges.
Yeah, and
they controlled it all.
Yeah, it was done for quality control, although I won't argue whether or not that was really the case.
Quality control, or was it more publisher control?
Well, I'd say it's publisher control.
They did have publisher control because they also, remember in the early days of the NES, you could only make, I think, 5 games a year.
Yes.
That's why Ultra was created for Konami, and there's a few other alternative labels. That was lifted later in the life cycle of the NES. But anyways, we're going to, I think at the end of the day, we are going to see them go chip. Like you said, it's cyclical.
Yeah, it's full cycle. The thing is that we started with the cartridge, right? This cartridge right here. Then we went to the CD, right? Which we talked about, and we had various reasons why. Now we're going back to a chip format. We've never technically really left the chip format because if you really think about it, the Game Boy Advance, DS, 3DS, they all had some sort of chip architecture there. Right, so we never really left it, and Nintendo kind of doubled down on that strategy, which then they were able to use for the Nintendo Switch to prove that the whole thing was actually viable. And so, as a result of that, you now have solid-state storage that for the same price you could pay for a CD, you can get much more storage and faster loading times than you would from a normal CD turning and trying to be read by a laser. And so as a result, you get more bang for your buck when it comes to that. Exactly, right? You see, here's the fun thing about this one, right? I actually went and I downloaded the new Zelda game on my Switch, but I have the physical media for Super Mario.
By the way, this has more memory than this.
So wait,
this I think tops out at 2 gigs.
So wait, the Switch actually has less memory than a DS?
No. DS has 2 gig limit, if I remember right.
Right.
This right now I think is 32, but I think it can go up to 64 with a future update.
Ah, got it.
But they are internally, from my understanding, similar technologies. But
they are just an advantage.
Then you can go like to this honker sucker. Mm-hmm. Now we're talking. Game Boy.
There you go.
but again, you're right, because this is also going to kind of last forever. And much more durable, except when your dog eats it, like mine ate my Splatoon. But by the way, what the hell, Nintendo? Save the environment. You don't need a case this big. What the hell? It doesn't even have a manual.
Were we talking about having physical copies and all that stuff? I mean, where are you going to put it in, man? Well, what are you going to put it in? What are you going to put? Where are you going to put that thing? You're going to lose that game.
This isn't bad. It's still kind of, actually, probably about the same amount of plastic in both of these.
Probably.
I don't actually have the game in here at the time. In fact, I probably should swap this for another game cover. But anyways, yeah, I mean, we're going to be going back and forth with the medium, because let's be honest, Sony will probably be the first to go to something else.
Yep.
Especially if they can make it proprietary, or make money off of it, because they are really happy they won the Blu-ray war, because they've been trying for years to win that one. If you want to talk about the history of consumer electronics, they've been waiting to win a format war forever, and they finally won one. And they're not going to give that up anytime soon. But if they had to give it up, I think they'd go to memory stick or something like that. The Vita, I think, uses like a memory stick like technology.
It does.
The UMD, that was a success. But yeah, we're I don't think we're down and out yet. Nintendo will continue using physical, I think, for the foreseeable future at least. They could have gone digital with the they could have gone completely digital with the Switch, but didn't. A lot of people were surprised. I wasn't. By the way, this is read-only. It is completely read-only. There is no memory storage on here, as opposed to this bad boy that does actually have memory on it. This has readable memory. This does not. Probably hence the size difference. But yeah, so that's what we're going to be seeing going forward. I think we're going to go to solid state media.
Makes sense to me. I mean, at the end of the day, it's better loading time, faster loading time. And you get the same. Yeah, you get the same amount of quality.
And you can change the the size of the medium with a firmware update.
Absolutely.
You're kind of limited on what the firmware on the disk drive is able to see when it comes to Blu-rays and optical media, because it doesn't know about the newer formats. This is scalable as much as you want, really, if you have the firmware available for it. So, all right. So, be sure to check us out on Gamers Uplink on Facebook. That's where everything Gamers Uplink related is going for right now. We will be building a website in the future. I promise we will be building a website.
Yep, we just run behind.
We've been a little behind on it. Real life gets in the way sometimes. But do go to Gamers Uplink on Facebook. We're posting things there every couple of days. Also check out our Twitter feeds. You can follow me on Admiral Joker on Twitter. So be sure to check me out there. George, where can they find you at?
You can find me on Facebook at George_N on Twitter, and You can follow me on the Gamers Uplink Facebook page as well.
All right. And we will be posting some new content. I hope to have some game reviews out soon. And we may not be, this is not a one-time deal. We're really doing this to try and make sure the streaming works correctly. And so far, I think it's been a really successful test.
Yeah,
everything seems to be working great. So probably our next show, given the holidays coming up, will probably be CES, I'm anticipating. Because we will do CES like we did last year, because we had a lot of fun with that. And I think we're going to be hearing a lot. And, of course, if there's any new Nintendo Directs or Sony or Microsoft press conference or pressers in the next few weeks, we'll, of course, cover those. I'm sure I think Nintendo will be quiet for a while because I think they just did the last big Smash one. And Smash is the next big game coming out. But I have a sneaky suspicion we'll see something from Sony before the end of the year.
Definitely. So, side note, don't forget to check out my upcoming series, the ColecoVision Chronicles, where I'm going to be documenting my first ever console and some of the games that I had. It's interesting because the quick and dirty story behind it is back in the day, this was my first gaming console, and I just dusted it off not more than a few months back. And found within my collection that I actually have some surprisingly good games, as well as some beta releases that a couple of them which never has been released before. In fact, if you want to check out our YouTube channel, look for a brief 1 minute video on a ColecoVision game called Colorsmith. It was one of the only drawing games on the ColecoVision, never before released. Exclusive to the exclusive video on our Gamers Something YouTube channel. I also have video gameplay of the beta version of Bump and Chump, which was initially put out by Mattel Electronics, and that had all different sounds and slowness and all that stuff. Little more known version of the of a beta there, but nevertheless. Things that you may have not necessarily seen. You can actually see the Colorsmith video going on right now. Interesting little piece of retro history there. Again, game never released, and we'll be talking about that along with.
Man, they need to get that thing RGB modded.
Yeah, I'm actually. You know what I'm doing? You know how I'm doing? I'm capturing these things. Is actually I have it hooked up to my VCR. And then the VCR is hooked up to an upscaler, and upscales is 720p, which then hooks up to my MacBook Pro, and I'm able to capture all that. So what you're seeing is actually the original video that is coming out of there. It's not modded or anything.
I'll say this: it looks really. I mean, it's obviously RF, but it looks not that awful. I mean, compared to some RF, it's actually pretty up. Now I can start seeing some banding now. So be sure to check it. Yeah, look forward to that. I actually have a series I want to do on retro gaming as well, kind of as I've gotten back into it. Kind of talk about the ups and downs of retro gaming in the more in today's scene, especially since it's becoming a little more commonplace and a lot more difficult to do so. So I'll be talking more about that in the future too. So, and of course, Gamers Uplink Live will always be on. We'll hopefully have some guests coming up in a couple of weeks. We're not going to spoil anything, but we hope to have some interesting guests here in the next couple of weeks. So be sure to stay tuned to our Facebook page for all of that. So for I am Matthew Majewski, editor-in-chief of Gamers Uplink. For George, our co-founder, everyone have a good night.
Have a good night, everybody.